The day two federal agents knocked on my HOA president's door, I watched from my living room window like I was watching someone else's life. She'd spent weeks acting untouchable. Then she got caught on my security footage, dragging a key down the side of a Humvee like she was signing her work. The look on her face when the badges came out. Yeah, that's the moment I realized she finally understood what she'd actually done. I live in Maplebrook Estates, one of those suburban neighborhoods where the grass is always cut, the mailboxes match, and people smile while judging you. It's quiet, clean, and run by a homeowners association that treats community standards like the Constitution. My name's Ryan Hayes. I'm Army Reserve, and I work a normal civilian job during the week, so my life is basically split between meetings, drill weekends, and trying not to forget which uniform is in which bag. A while back, my unit assigned me an older HMMWV, a Humvee to maintain as part of readiness. Not a toy, not a flex, just equipment that needed to stay operational. I parked it in my driveway because that's what made sense. It was straight clean, not leaking anything, not blocking sidewalks, just sitting there minding its own business in a neighborhood full of identical SUVs. That piece lasted about 5 minutes. The first comments were the usual suburban whispers. Is that allowed? Is that safe? Why does he need that here? Like I'd personally lowered property values by existing. Then Brenda Collins moved in. Brenda had that energy where every sentence sounds like a correction. She introduced herself to exactly 3 people, learned the HOA rules like they were a weapon, and somehow climbed onto the board faster than anyone I'd ever seen. A couple months later, she was president, and the way she wore that title, you'd think she'd been elected governor. The first time she came at me, she didn't even say hello. I got home and found a violation notice slapped on my front door like a scarlet letter. Military/commercial vehicle not permitted in driveway. Remove within 14 days. Failure to comply will result in fines. 14 days. Like I could just call the Army and say, hey, sorry, my neighborhood's vibe is delicate, can you pick up your vehicle? I called the property management line trying to keep it calm. Megan Price answered. She sounded like she'd already taken 5 calls about someone's trash can being 2 inches too visible. She lowered her voice and said, Ryan, Brenda's pushing this hard, but the board hasn't voted on anything that specifically bans your vehicle. She's kind of improvising. Improvising with my life. I thought, fine. Paperwork, process. I can do process in my sleep. Then the next letter arrived. A fine. $1,000. I stared at it long enough that my coffee got cold. Brenda had basically decided she could invent a rule, enforce it, and charge me for the privilege of not obeying her imagination. I didn't go storming into a meeting because that's exactly what people like Brenda want. I went the boring route. I contacted JAG through my unit, Captain Nolan Reed, because if this involved a Humvee, it involved government property, and I wasn't about to freestyle that. Captain Reed read everything and said, they can't fine you for this. HOA rules don't override federal assignments, and they definitely don't have authority over the vehicle itself. He sent a formal letter. No emotion, no insults, just facts and consequences. And for a second, it worked. The fine got reversed. Megan confirmed it. It's been voided, she said. Brenda's furious, but it's done. I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. I thought, okay, maybe this is over. That's the thing about people like Brenda, though. When they can't win through rules, they start playing dirty. A few days later, I came home from work around 6. The street looked normal, kids somewhere in the distance, sprinklers ticking that golden suburban calm. Then I saw the Humvee. At first, I didn't even register what was wrong, just that something about the door looked off. I walked closer and my stomach dropped. A long, ugly scratch ran down the side panel deep enough to bite through paint and into metal. Not a scuff. Not an accident. A deliberate, angry line like someone wanted it to be seen. I just stood there staring. The kind of silence where you can hear your own pulse. My first feeling wasn't even rage. It was this sinking embarrassment like I'd brought a storm into my own driveway. Then the anger hit hard because that vehicle wasn't my truck. It was equipment I was responsible for, and someone had decided to touch it like a target. That night I sat at my kitchen table with Brenda's letters spread out in front of me. I stared at the scratch photos on my phone and had one thought that felt way too real. Maybe I should just ask my unit to move it to a secure lot somewhere. Not because Brenda was right, but because I was tired of coming home to a fight. And then another thought followed, colder and clearer. If I move it, she'll just pick something else. My flag, my lawn, my tone at meetings. People like that don't stop, they just switch targets. So I did the one thing Brenda couldn't argue with. I opened my security camera app. 2:15 p.m. There she was, Brenda Collins, walking up my driveway like she owned it. She looked left, looked right, pulled a key from her hand, and dragged it down the Humvee in one steady motion. Then she did it again shorter, like she wanted to make sure the message landed. She stepped back and actually paused to admire it. Then she walked away calm as if she'd just watered a plant. I replayed it twice because part of my brain refused to accept how casual she was. Then I saved it to 3 places because the rest of my brain absolutely understood what this was. I called my commanding officer, Major Alex Turner, and kept my voice steady. "Sir, the vehicle's been vandalized. I have video of the person who did it." There was a short pause, heavy. Then he said, "That's federal property. Report it. Call military police now." And just like that, Brenda's little neighborhood power game stopped being an HOA issue and became something real. The next day, Special Agent Jordan Pierce from Army CID came to my house. He was calm, professional, and completely uninterested in Brenda's community standards. Inspector Caleb Wright from Federal Protective Service came too, looked at the scratch, documented everything, asked for the earlier violation notices. I handed them my folder, letters, emails, fine notice, reversal timelines. The whole story clean and organized, because if there's one thing the Army teaches you, it's documentation. Agent Pierce nodded slowly. This shows escalation. Inspector Wright ran a finger near the damage, careful not to touch too much, and said, "Repairs on these aren't cheap. If the cost clears a threshold, this isn't a slap-on-the-wrist situation." That night I finally slept. Not because I felt safe, but because the rules were no longer being written by Brenda with a pen and a grudge. The following morning I noticed 2 vehicles pull up in front of Brenda's house. Not neighbors, not board members. Badges. Brenda opened her door wearing the same tight smile she always wore, like she was already annoyed at the inconvenience of reality. "What is this about?" she said, loud enough for the street to hear, because of course she needed an audience. Agent Pierce introduced himself. Inspector Wright did too. They were calm, polite, almost boring. Brenda crossed her arms and said, "If this is about that ugly military truck, it doesn't belong here. I'm protecting property values." She said it like she was doing the neighborhood a favor, like she was the hero. Agent Pierce didn't argue. He didn't raise his voice. He said, "Ma'am, we have video of you damaging a U.S. military vehicle assigned to a service member." Her smile twitched. "That's ridiculous," she snapped. "This is a private community, the HOA." Inspector Wright cut in flat and simple. "Homeowners Association rules don't override federal law." Brenda's face shifted pale then red, like her body was scrambling for a new strategy. She tried to pivot because that's what she does. "I didn't do anything. He's intimidating the neighborhood with that thing. Agent Pierce raised a hand, not aggressive, just final. "We're not here to debate. We're here because damaging federal property is a criminal matter." That was the moment her world cracked. You could see it, her brain trying to summon a board meeting, a fine, a warning letter, and realizing none of it worked here. Her voice got smaller, still, sharp, still Brenda, but suddenly uncertain. I was just trying to teach him a lesson." Inspector Wright nodded once. "You did." They didn't make a show of it. No shouting, no drama, just procedure consequences and the quiet collapse of someone who thought authority meant immunity. Brenda stood on her porch, gripping the doorframe like it could hold her up, eyes darting down the street for someone to defend her. Nobody moved, nobody spoke. And I didn't feel triumphant. I felt relieved because the second she decided my driveway was her battleground, she forgot one thing. Some lines aren't hers to cross. Lesson A, bully with a title, is still a bully, until the real law shows up.